Testing, testing. Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to start the talk now. If you could put your headphones on. Okay, great. So, hi everyone. Great to meet you. Nice to have some waves. I'm going to be talking about a warehouse-first approach to marketing. Please let me know if you can't hear me or if there's any audio issues. So, firstly, some introductions. My name is John. I'm a senior product manager at Snowplow. I've been a data enthusiast or professional for my whole career. Started out in venture capital, then I was hired as a first data analyst at a startup, went through the whole journey of building a data team, centralizing stuff in a data warehouse. Then I got frustrated that people weren't using data to make decisions, so I made the shift over to product management. And ever since I've been a product manager, focusing mainly on growth and activation across a range of industries, so B2B, B2C, SaaS, marketplace. In my spare time, I also like to write about these topics on Medium. A bit of an intro to Snowplow as well. So Snowplow is a first-party behavioral data creation platform. So we have a set of SDKs for mobile apps, for websites, for server-side. You can send this data through our pipeline into a data warehouse where it can be enriched and modeled and validated and forwarded on to other third-party tools. So I'm assuming that most of us are data people here, looking to support our marketing brothers and sisters. And what we need to start with an understanding of what the goal is for marketing teams. It's pretty simple. It's basically just get more users at a lower cost. So marketing is typically given a budget. They need to spend this to acquire users. If these users generate more revenue than the cost to acquire them, then marketing is helping to grow the business. And this breaks down into a few fundamental tasks. Firstly, you need to identify a group of users, then activate them or reach out to them. And finally, you need to measure whether that campaign or that channel was working. So an example might be, you say the target group of users is people who have signed up in the last 7 days. The activation is some sort of like email onboarding campaign or an offer, and then you would measure performance through A/B testing or just seeing if it generates an uplift. And this is an iterative process, pretty similar to like general product development. We see companies do the same basic task at several different stages of maturity. So there's quite a nice model from BCG called the Digital Marketing Maturity Model. It starts out at nascent, where basically a marketing team is just operating within a single third-party channel. So you might be running campaigns on Facebook and using Facebook's in-platform reporting to see, okay, how many users did this generate, how much did we spend, etc. So the data is typically fragmented and it lives on the third-party silo. The second stage is where you've started to centralize a little bit of the data. You're feeding some of your own data into a third-party platform to automate the ad buying. So you might have set a campaign and some targets and it's running. This is also where performance marketing starts to play a role. The third stage is called connected, and this is where you've now gathered all of your data sources together in one place and you can start to measure, okay, which channel is really working. So before this stage, the marketing team might have allocated in a fairly arbitrary way, like, okay, 30% goes to Facebook, 30% goes to Google, some other percentage to offline or LinkedIn or whatever it is. When you hit this connected stage, you're going to try and measure the impact and then allocate more budget to the channels that are actually working. The final stage is called multi-moment, and that's where you're starting to use data to personalize offers and to create recommendations in real time. And this is also where we start to layer in like AI and machine learning. So as we climb up this curve, it gets more complex and more difficult, but there is a higher return on investment. So we see a lot of marketing teams try to do this, but there are several challenges along the way. So the first problem is that the data you get from third parties is often siloed and just straight up unreliable. So I have an example here, but based on my experience in previous companies, if you look at the page views for a page last week from Google Analytics, and then you check your own internal server data for how many pages you served, the numbers are like 2x different. Google Analytics vastly underreports because people are using ad blockers to prevent the data from being sent to GA. Safari's intelligent tracking prevention is getting in the way. There might be like cookie consent issues, etc. And this isn't just like a random 50% of your users who's missing. It's often the more tech-savvy users, maybe the ones who are using Apple devices, etc. And so this leads to the situation where the marketing team goes, wait, why are there two different numbers? And that's when you start to lose trust in the data, or even worse, people pick the number that like fits their narrative. I'm sure we've all experienced this in the past. The second problem is that attribution is, well, generally it's hard, and it's specifically much harder these days. Firstly, attribution is hard because a customer might interact with multiple campaigns on their journey. So they might see a Facebook ad, they might download a white paper on your website, they might come to an event, and all of those channels will report a conversion. And if you add up all the conversions, you get a number that's much bigger than the actual number of signups you have. So you need to find a way to basically, some heuristic like first touch attribution or last touch attribution. This is the general problem of attribution, but specifically on mobile, attribution has gotten a lot harder. The main change here was in 2021. Apple released iOS 14.5, which now required users to give consent to share this thing called IDFA. You might look at this and be like, hey, it's one column, how bad can it be? Like, pretty bad, it turns out, because what happens is you can no longer track a user's journey all the way from viewing an ad to downloading your app to signing up and then doing other stuff later on down the line. So because you don't have that full customer journey, you can't actually figure out which campaigns are working. There are these systems like SK Ad Network, which give kind of anonymized, aggregated data. But the overall effect is that the ads that your marketing team is running on mobile aren't as effectively targeted. They're in front of the wrong people. People don't care about the ad. They don't click on it. And overall return on investment goes down. The third problem is changing consumer behaviors. The first digital ad, banner ad, had a click-through rate of 44%. Imagine what your marketing teams would do to achieve that now. Nowadays, 0.44% is actually a good number. And we see this strategy play out over and over again across a range of different channels. A new channel is introduced. There's a brief window of time where there's kind of like a growth hack, like, oh my gosh, we can run these ads on TikTok and get amazing conversion. And then other companies figure it out, users get sick of ads, they stop clicking, and so there's actually more money chasing fewer clicks. And the overall effect of this is, if you're just doing the same thing as you were doing before, you're actually going backwards because competition is increasing and users' preferences are changing. So I think a lot of marketing teams are still kind of living in denial a little bit. The 2010s was a great time to be a digital marketer. It was kind of black magic. Like, you just told, Facebook or Google, like, this is my budget, this is my creative, you go figure it out. And they would run a bunch of optimizations and tests, and they would figure out exactly like who the users were that cared about this product. It was amazing, and the money just kind of flowed in. This just doesn't work anymore. So we think there's an alternative, which we're calling the modern marketing data stack. And the core idea is pretty simple. You need to centralize marketing data in your own data warehouse. So a brief history of kind of where this idea has come from. There's been an evolution in kind of marketing data platforms, starting in the 1990s with CRMs. Salesforce was the first big one. They were actually the first SaaS company, in fact. Then we've got data management platforms which manage ad data, like Adobe and Oracle have some offerings here. Then we've got customer data platforms like Segment. And as we go forward in time, the amount of data and the granularity of data that's collected increases. Then we start to see the shift from 2020s approximately, where composable customer data platforms are introduced, where the tracking of the data, the storage of the data, and the activation is decoupled. And finally, in 2023, we're seeing companies do really interesting things with machine learning and AI models. And so the big shift is some third party owns your data to you own your data. So I realize I missed the middle image here. Just imagine a warehouse icon there. So the architecture is you basically collect first party data from your website and your mobile or wherever, and you also use ELT or ETL tools to collect data, put it in the warehouse. Magic happens here, which I'll talk about, and then you activate. So you send it to your CRM or analytics tools or some sort of marketing automation platform. So the real benefit of being able to put everything in the data warehouse is that you can build these rich customer profiles. That's a fancy term for like a massive users table. Think of it like that. With a lot of columns, you have the data that users have inputted on sign up. You also have how they've interacted with your product, what clicks and impressions they've done, what devices they have, etc. You join that to your transaction data, what products they've bought, how much you've earned from them, etc. And then external data from third-party sources. I don't know why I put weather there, but maybe some people like to buy your products when it's sunny or something. And so the net effect of this is you move from basic profiles like 20-something-year-old male in London with an iPhone to a much more rich and granular profile, like a married homeowner with a low churn score, etc. And this is a bit like, how Netflix has those super niche categories, like, 90s retro futuristic Japanese anime. It's a great category, by the way. But being able to put people in these segments means that you can then reach out in a targeted way. And it's kind of a win-win for everyone, because for your customers, you can personalize the offers and make it seem much more relevant and engaging. So to kind of go through the overall benefits, we've seen customers implement this strategy, and the first and most important benefit is just increased return on investment, right? If you get better at solving the attribution problem and targeting and personalization, customers are more likely to engage and click, and your ad dollars go further. The second benefit is that this is a really solid future-proof foundation, because the data is in your warehouse. You can build on top of it. You can swap out particular vendors. I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting stuff happening with generative AI. I'm sure there's a lot of talks on that today. But you can't train your models if the data is living in somebody else's warehouse. You need to have that in your own warehouse. And the third point here is that it allows you to be more careful about user privacy. I think we have a responsibility as an industry to be more careful with how we use users' data. But at least if it's in your warehouse, you're not sending it to a third party who can then sell it on to others, a la Facebook and the Cambridge Analytica platform. So we have a case study of a customer that we helped along this journey. It's Auto Trader, so online car marketplace. They were a classifieds ad, and they've been digital since about 2013. So they get a decently high amount of traffic. They're a marketplace, and most of their revenue comes from running kind of internal ads or promotions on the website. So they started out by, they came to us with this problem that their central North Star metric of full page ads, the data was just super messy and unreliable. It was coming from GA, and it was inconsistent and not matching what they saw from their internal data. So they implemented first-party tracking on this main metric. and then started using more behavioral data tracking across the rest of the business. Then they were able to basically join together a bunch of these different data sets and start forming like richer customer profiles. And the final use case that they ended up implementing was a real-time personalization system with a couple of different vendors along the way. But essentially the way it worked is, as a user, you'd go to AutoTrader, you would click on an ad or just a listing really. This data would be sent back in real time to the warehouse where it would run like a small recommendation model. And then the more listings you clicked on, the more it would figure out your preferences, and then the warehouse would communicate back to the front end, hey, this user loves whatever, Porsches, so show them more Porsches, without the user having to define any filters or click anything. And the results in terms of engagement were super positive. Users see more of the kinds of cars that they like, and AutoTrader gets more engagement and more ad spend. So this approach is not without its problems. Firstly, it can quickly get expensive. The more data you collect, the more advanced models you run, the more the costs can add up. And you have to be quite careful with how you plan and manage your queries and make sure you're actually using the data that you collect. Second thing is, it's not easy necessarily. Essentially, like if I can broadly categorize it, previously other people figured out the secret sauce. The secret sauce lived in Facebook or Google or whatever. If you're making your own secret sauce, you need to be very careful about the ingredients. So how do you track your data? How do you model it? Who has access to it? All of these things are really important, and you need to think carefully about it. So just a final shout out. I'm leading a new product at Snowplow where we're introducing kind of a marketing analytics product. If you want to hear more, come to us at stand 734. So that's it. We've got time for questions now.
Hello. Are we
sorry,
on?
I can't hear you. Yeah? Oh, nice. Thanks.
Yes, this product then, is that going to do roughly what you're describing here, but as a productized thing rather than having to build your own?
Yeah, we're building it in stages, in steps. So the initial version is basically tracking, data modeling, and marketing dashboards that more or less replicate what a marketer would see in Google Analytics. So it's intended as, a quick start to get people most of the way there. We're intending to layer in more like advanced use cases, funnels and customer journey analysis over time.
Okay, yeah, great talk. Thank you very much.
Hi there, really enjoyed that. I'm a marketing person, not a data person, so you're very much preaching to the choir here. My question is about that missing section of data that you showed at the top where you're seeing the more tech-savvy people opt out. I'm guilty of doing that as well. So how are you going to catch people like me? Like, what is the solution, do you think? Because this data platform is fabulous, but if you can't track the more savvy people, like we're missing a large proportion of that traffic.
Yeah, so it depends on how you implement your tracking. Essentially, first-party tracking is generally allowed and okay. So if you visit a website and the website wants to send data back to its own servers, that's cool. It's not going to get blocked by an ad blocker or whatever. If you visit the website and it says, hey, I want to send this data to Google or Facebook, or there's a lot of kind of dodgy ad tech vendors out there, that's much more likely to be blocked, right? Also cookies, right? So first-party cookies, much less likely to be blocked than third-party cookies. I think third-party cookies just completely don't work on Safari right now. So if you are collecting the data first-party, then you do see much more of it actually come into your warehouse. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Great talk. I've got one a bit half questions. Right, it's around the use case, the Auto Trader one. I've had my run-in with them recently, so I'm quite familiar with the AI. So it does work. Question one is, what tech stack did you end up using? So, I'm from J-Man Group, a kind of data management consultancy. What tech stack did you use? Because you said yours is not fully up and running, and it's on the end-to-end. So, what did you use for that example? And can you talk us through the case, the stages of the build from going from nothing to the full end-to-end kind of stuff? How did you break it down into stages?
Cool. Okay, yeah. So I wasn't personally involved in this project, but I'll give my kind of take on it. So the full stack was basically Snowplow on the front end. That was, for a little bit more context, Snowplow is a pipeline that you can deploy in your own infrastructure. So it is first party, as I was talking about. So from the browser's perspective, it looks like it's just sending data back to Auto Trader's servers. So then it landed in their warehouse. I think they were using Databricks. Then High Touch was the reverse ETL provider. So once the data was in the warehouse and it needed to be synced back to the front end, they used High Touch for that. And I think Braze was used to personalize some of the campaigns around that, the push messaging and stuff. Most of the actual magic was developed by the Auto Trader team themselves. So we were mostly involved in making sure that the data that they were receiving in their warehouse was clean and accurate and reliable, not getting blocked, etc.